At the time of this video, the Boston Bruins continue to be the best team in the NHL by a mile. I wouldn't doubt it if I posted this video a day before the trade deadline, and the Bees are still on top of the standings. Currently, the Bruins are 39-7-5, and they are getting back on the win column after losing 3 straight games. But the Bruins may actually be better than the 2018-19 Tampa Bay Lightning statistically. For those who are new to watching hockey, this was a team that had the President's Trophy, the Hart winner, the Ted Lindsay winner, the Vezina winner, and a Norris nominee. Clearly the Bruins are special, and they're hoping to not pull a 2018-19 Tampa in the playoffs, where the team had gotten swept in the very first round by an underdog Columbus Blue Jackets. Nonetheless, Boston can maybe avoid this problem by being huge buyers at the deadline, something Tampa did not do very much. Their only main trade before the 2019 playoffs was acquiring Slater Koekkoek from Chicago. Either way, the Bruins could be in a last dance scenario as Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci, their 1C and 2C, are possibly in the last season of their career, so this really is a do or die situation for the Bruins. Do these two legends go off in the sunset with a cup, or unfortunately go home with nothing? They could very well increase their chances if they traded for a guy who can change the entire scope of the team in the playoffs. We should expect Don Sweeney and company to do business with the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, the Blackhawks, as we all know, are polar opposite of the Bruins. The Bruins keep winning and are trying to win the Stanley Cup lottery, while the Blackhawks keep losing and are trying to win the Connor Bedard lottery. They are currently 13-26-4 and are only ahead of the Columbus Blue Jackets in points. As expected, they are going to be huge sellers at the deadline, but there's one issue. They don't really have that much to offer. Check out Daily Faceoff and we see the Chicago Blackhawks lineup. This team knew that they weren't really going to go anywhere as they've made the playoffs once in 7 years, but they got rid of guys who could have been part of this rebuild. They traded 40-goal scorer Alex DeBrincat, they traded their 3rd overall pick in Kirby Dach, they said goodbye to Dominic Kubalik, and they also said goodbye to Dylan Strome. Now they're on the verge of trading their 2 most important players away in franchise history in Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews, both players who are linked to the Boston Bruins. However, let's not focus on Kane for now and instead focus on Jonathan Toews because he makes more sense for Boston. Whenever we take a look at future Hall of Famers getting traded, there's a lot that must be noted. I mean, the Blackhawks are literally considering a trade to a rival for their franchise player who won 3 cups with the team, captained them for nearly 15 seasons. But this is unfortunately what is happening, so let's take a look at Jonathan Toews and see what he can bring to the table. He's currently a pending UFA and is 34 years old, and unlike Patrick Kane, he has been infuriated with this team. I made a video about his frustrations to the media about the rebuild that he doesn't think he wants to become a part of it, which makes sense considering Toews hasn't experienced losing like this before. Therefore, it could be reasonable to see Toews waive his NMC if he gets the opportunity to play for a contending team like the Bruins. He's still showing signs that he can produce well on this poor Blackhawks team, and I'm not obviously going to go over his whole career as I usually do because, come on, I mean, it's Jonathan Toews. He's obviously gotten a lot older and has dealt with severe injuries as he missed the entire 2020-21 season for that. He's not going to be much of a major producer either, but he's just kind of insurance for the Boston Bruins. They have Pastrnak and Marchand and their depth players to help with scoring. I think all hockey fans know what Jonathan Toews can do for a team. He was incredible in that upset series against Edmonton in the bubble back in 2020, notching 9 points, 5 of those being goals. This year, he has 27 points in 42 games, which again is expected of him because he's not as good as he used to be, say, back in 2013 or 2015. The bright part is that he's projected to put up over 50 points if he plays the rest of the games this year, which obviously isn't bad, especially when you consider the team he's playing for. Just think about what can happen to his production if he joins the best team in the league. He could very well hit 60 or 65 points. That's a very solid point total for a guy who's gone through so much, so it's very fair to say that there should be a pretty sizable trade market for him once we get near the deadline. The Bruins had interest in Toews earlier this season along with other teams including the Avalanche and the Rangers, so let's not be surprised when they end up making a run for him at the deadline in March. This is really going to be a perfect match for the Bruins. Let's get into why that's the case. When we take a look at the Bruins lineup, we see that they have everything going the right way. They have the best top line in the NHL with the Marchand, Bergeron, and Pastrnak line, not to mention how their depth is also incredible. We see guys who would be top 6 forwards on other teams and their bottom 6 like Charlie Coyle, Craig Smith, and Nick Foligno. Their defense continues to be great, led by Charlie McAvoy, and best of all is their goaltending led by Linus Ullmark, who has been insane this year and is the favorite to win the Vezina Trophy. So yes, this team is really, really special, and the vast majority of their players are thriving this season, which has made them so dominant this year. But there are ways to improve no matter how good you are, and I personally think that their bottom six, which is already good this year, needs a little bit of a boost. AJ Greer and Craig Smith have struggled a lot this year and haven't consistently played like regulars in the lineup, which is why bringing in a veteran guy like Jonathan Toews makes a lot of sense. Toews would easily be able to fill in the third line center for the Bruins if he's acquired, but the only problem is not just Tomas Nosek, but Jake DeBrusk as well. He's out, and he's bound to play top 6 minutes when he returns. As a result, this might lead Jonathan Toews to be a fourth line center, which may be something he would not be too happy with. So that could be a reason why he does not play in Boston. But the good thing is how flexible the Bruins are. We've seen Tomas Nosek play wing, we've seen Charlie Coyle play wing too. This could bring Toews to the third line and maybe send Trent Frederic down to the fourth line if necessary. No matter who's placed where, the Bruins' bottom six would be immensely improved if Jonathan Toews is acquired. Moreover, Toews is an excellent defensive forward, which is why we could see him on the Bruins' penalty kill, which by the way is already the best in the league so far. Adding a former Selke Trophy winner to the best penalty kill in the league, what could really go wrong with that, right? We all know how the Bruins have struggled a lot in the Stanley Cup final as they've lost the last 2 finals they've been in, which is why adding Jonathan Toews, a 3-time Stanley Cup champion, should not hurt at all. Let's kind of just shift gears for a minute and talk about the return that the Bruins could be giving to Chicago for Jonathan Toews. On the Jeff Merrick show, we had insider Elliot Friedman tell us that the Blackhawks are seeking a 2nd-round pick and a 3rd-round pick for Toews, which I honestly felt on paper makes sense. But given what Jonathan Toews has meant for this team, no sense at all. This is the greatest captain in franchise history going away, and also one of the greatest captains in history. I mean, he's going to be up there with Sidney Crosby, Dennis Potvin, Wayne Gretzky, Steve Yzerman, and George Armstrong, all captains who have won 3 Stanley Cups with one team. This is a guy who's 6th all-time on a prestigious Original Six franchise in points. But those days are gone, and Toews isn't what he used to be. He's declined drastically, therefore a 2nd and 3rd round pick for him makes sense. We're glad to at least see him still play hockey, but it's going to be a very sad goodbye for the Blackhawks. But there is an issue with this trade. The Bruins currently have $4 million of trade deadline cap space and need to find a way to fit Toews' $10.5 million cap hit in there. Even full retention doesn't help. This means that the Bruins will have to trade somebody to Chicago. With this Blackhawks team still rebuilding, it wouldn't necessarily hurt them to get a guy who can be in their top 6. Depending how much longer Patrick Kane sticks around, the Blackhawks could maybe acquire a guy who's got somewhat of veteran experience and can play in their top 6. A guy I think of immediately is, well, Craig Smith. He carries a $3.1 million cap hit until the end of the season and has struggled mightily in Boston. We could also see defenseman Mike Riley getting added to the deal with a sweetener, as he is currently in the American Hockey League due to his $3 million cap hit, which is honestly shocking because he is a guy who, for many people, criminally underrate. But no matter the case, there are still ways to work it around for both teams. I think a really good package will be the Bruins' 2025 2nd-round pick, a 2023 3rd-round pick, Mike Riley or Craig Smith, or maybe both, and or another 3rd-round pick. Say 2024 because I doubt Boston will give up so much for this year's draft class considering what we have. Either the Bruins get both Riley and Smith and say goodbye to that extra 3rd-round pick, or they get one of the guys and keep that extra 3rd. I really don't see 2 players and 2/3 heading to Chicago because that would become a bit of a steal for the Blackhawks. At the end of the day, this could very well be a good move for the Bruins, as it kind of reminds me of the Ryan O'Reilly trade where the Blues were venturing out to get that missing puzzle piece to go on their Cup quest, which turned out to be really good because they won the Stanley Cup the next year. But for the 2022-2023 Bruins, they are currently doing better than the 2018-19 Tampa Bay Lightning, which means a lot because that team was historically successful. And for Chicago, well, they should really expect more draft picks coming in once and if they trade Patrick Kane away, and they will continue their quest to win the lottery and get Connor Bedard as a new guy in town. Thus, it has the potential to be a win-win scenario for both teams, ultimately a goodbye to the greatest captain in Blackhawks history, which will make some fans very upset and heartbroken, but hey, hockey's a business, alright? It sucks how this is the truth, but we will see if the Blackhawks even decide to trade away Jonathan Toews. This is not official, please remember that. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about a Jonathan Toews trade to Boston. Do the Bruins go for it? Does Chicago keep their captain? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thank you guys for tuning in and have a wonderful day.